Have you ever felt like you really overreacted perhaps to something someone said or did? Or maybe you've been trying to get this a result or achieve this thing, and you keep coming up with blocks that prevents you from getting there. Or maybe you get there and then you lose it right away. And there's a pattern of this. If either of those things are happening, then it's pretty likely that you have an unconscious limiting belief. So what is an unconscious limiting belief? It is a belief that you're not really aware of, or maybe you could be a little bit aware of it, but it's not something that you realize that you're really doing or that you're enacting in your life. It's limiting because it's holding you back. It's usually a negative belief about yourself. For example, I'm not important, or I don't deserve this, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not enough, or I'm too much, right? Any of these beliefs that you have about yourself can really be hidden in there. And then what happens is we interact with the world and it's like a wound, right? And so if you imagine, I'll use my arm. If you imagine that you have a wound gaping in your arm, you can see the bone, it's infected, right? And the world pokes you. It does. It's not always easy, right? So someone's poking you and then boom, they poke you in that wound. You're gonna overreact. Of course you're gonna overreact because it hurts, right? But all of us walk around with these open wounds and we don't even realize that they're there. And the problem is if we don't realize it's there, then we can't clean it. Then we can't sew it up and make sure that it heals, right? So how do we heal unconscious limiting beliefs? The first thing to do for sure is to realize that it's there. The problem again with unconscious limiting beliefs is that we don't realize that belief is there, and so we're kind of doing actions to prove that it's not really true, but we don't even know that that's what we're doing. For example, I just discovered I had an unconscious limiting belief that I was inadequate, right? So then that means even if I try to prove how adequate I am, because it's coming from that fear of inadequacy, everything I do to prove it wrong, it makes it stronger. It feeds that fear. So then that fear becomes bigger and more infected and more detrimental to my life, right? I really think the universe kind of tries to whisper to us gently, and then if we don't listen, it gets a little bit louder, and then if we really don't listen, then it starts yelling and hitting us over the head and then taking the floor from underneath us, right? But these are opportunities to heal, because if we don't heal that, then it's going to spread. I mean, I take my metaphors way too far, but still, healing these unconscious limiting beliefs is absolutely essential if we want to get to the next level, if we want to break out of that pattern of things that are happening, if we want to ensure that we're having healthy connections and communications with people that we love the most, because the people that are closest to us are often the ones that are going to trigger these unconscious hidden beliefs. So how do we heal them? There's 2 steps that are really important. I mean, the first step, which I'm not including, is actually recognizing that it's there, right? So I'll make another video that will really kind of go into, okay, how can you exactly figure out what your unconscious hidden belief is? Because that is so important, right? Then once you are able to really kind of put it into words, I don't know why it's so important, but we need to be able to label what it is. And once we label what it is, if it's something that you're seeing in multiple areas of your life, then you know it has more to do with you than the other person or the situation, right? So if there's a pattern that's happening, regardless of people, then you know it's you and not the situation. If I have this fear that I'm inadequate, and not only do I have it in work, but I also have it in my friendships, in my romantic relationship, in my family, right? All those different lives, then I know that there's something going on, right? So labeling what that fear is so important, because then we know that it's there. Then the 2 steps to do that, to heal that, is to step 1, just create a mantra that's the opposite of it. I'm pretty simplistic. I'm not a poet. So if I'm inadequate, then my mantra is I'm adequate, right? Perhaps you want to create something, you're better than me at doing this sort of thing, so you can create something a little bit more profound. But I do find simplest is often the easiest, and it should never be a really long mantra. Certainly not more than 1 sentence, and really a short sentence at that. So it's something, this mantra is so important because it's something that you say over and over and over and over and over again, as many times as possible. So put post-it notes in your home, put an alarm on your phone, put a post-it note on your computer so that you see it every time you're working. It's really important to get this mantra and say it repetitively, because 1, repetition is how you get into your subconscious. 2, we're trying to make a new neural pathway. You have this neural pathway of this unconscious fear that's very strong, and your brain automatically goes into, and it's deeply, there's a deep groove, right? So we want to create intentionally an alternate neural pathway, which is your mantra. And the more you say that, the stronger that neural pathway gets. So that's step 1. Step 2 is, words and thoughts are very powerful. However, we live in this world, right? So actions is what really makes it a reality. So once you start to have that glimmer of belief that maybe your mantra might possibly be true, or it could be in the near future, that's when you move to step 2. Oftentimes when you first start your mantra, you won't believe it, and it's just really elbow grease and willpower to just say it over and over and over again. But if that door opens just a little bit, take that and start doing actions from that sense of belief or that sense of intention. So I am my mantra, therefore I'm going to do this. The actions don't matter at all. Doesn't matter what you do. And in fact, actually, lots of small actions are very, very powerful, and maybe even more powerful than a big grand gesture, although you could definitely do both, right? But you do these actions as a way to bring into reality this new truth about yourself. So for me, I am adequate, therefore I'm going to eat this donut. Or I'm adequate, therefore I'm not going to eat this donut. Again, the actions don't matter. It's that I'm doing it with this intention of my new mantra. And once you do that, it really, it changes the reality, and it gets you to the next level. It makes you crash through those barriers that you had before, and you're really able to interact with people in a totally new way, because you don't have this defense, you don't have this wound that you're operating out of, and they can poke you and it doesn't matter anymore. And the most beautiful thing that I've found is when I finally am able to heal my wound, so I am adequate, then when other people do things, I'm able to give them that, my mantra as well. Like, oh, you made a mistake, it's no problem, you're adequate. And that becomes my default. Instead of becoming judgmental or seeing the faults in others, it actually really makes you a profoundly better person every time you heal these wounds, because then you can be there for other people, and you're not trying to compete with them, because there's nothing to compete about. You're adequate, or you're important, they're important, everyone's important. There's enough of your mantra to go around for everybody. But you won't be able to believe that other people are your mantra until you believe it first. I always say you can't give people bananas unless you've got bananas. So unconscious limiting beliefs are very, very important. Sometimes these horrible situations, the silver lining of them is that they can show us that maybe there's an unconscious limiting belief that's operating there, and being shown that is a gift, because that's the only way we can heal it. So Please let me know if you're aware of some of your unconscious limiting beliefs and you feel comfortable sharing that in the comments, and what helped you to heal it, or let me know your successes or struggles in trying to use the technique that I've shared here. I look forward to reading your comments and interacting with you. Thanks for taking the time. Like and subscribe if you like this video. Okay.